So, as some of you may know, for a while now, I've kind of been trying to figure out exactly what about Season 2 really rubs me the wrong way. I've rewatched the show a handful of times, I've asked a bunch of people around, I've said, hey, what do you think is the biggest difference between Season 1 and Season 2? And in all my attempts at trying to find an answer, it wasn't until I watched the most recent episode, the mid-season special, that it finally really dawned on me what I have such a big problem with in Helluva Boss. Helluva Boss lacks focus.
What's wrong, kid?
They added another subplot that they're never gonna follow up on.
Oh yeah? Well, it's about to happen again.
For a long time now, it was kind of okay, because when you're in Season 1, every new thing that you get introduced to is going to be, well, it's going to be new. It's really hard to tell where the show is entirely going, except for maybe like, oh, in One Piece in Episode 1, Luffy says he wants to be the Pirate King. That's a really easy goal, but along the way, we have a bunch of different little journeys that we take. So you have the big end goal and all the minor little in-the-middle stuff. The joy of the journey type shit, you know? That type of shit I'm trying to be on and stuff. So as a consequence, you don't really find that many problems with the fact that Luffy is dicking around doing all this random shit, because at the end of the day, you know that he wants to be the Pirate King. In Helluva Boss, it's a little bit more, I would say, unclear, but I think that IMP as a business wants to be a big business, and Blitz doesn't want to go in debt. So you could just say at the end of the day, his big goal, his end goal is, I want to have my company succeed. And he does a lot of things in Season 1 to facilitate that goal. He takes a bunch of jobs, he makes a deal with Stolas, and even if he doesn't want to, he does a lot of things that facilitate his company moving further in the world. And I would say that Season 1 is a very good complete package, up until they added a random episode that was just kind of a dance number at the end of it. But the first 7 episodes are really good, and it was when I was most engaged with Helluva Boss. And because you've already invested an entire season into watching the show, of course you're gonna watch Season 2. But Season 2 did a lot of things to get further removed from what Helluva Boss originally was, I would argue, and that's where it lost its focus. In every episode of Season 2, we've been introduced to, if not one, at least a handful of new characters, each of them with a lot of shit going on. And in Season 1, when you tease that a bunch of characters are gonna come back, like, infamously, Striker's gonna come back, Dorks are gonna come back, Verosika's probably gonna come back again. Maybe even those fucking random inventors are gonna come back from the Cherubs episode. The Cherubs might come back. There's a lot of, like, ambiguity, but you know that, okay, the important stuff will probably be followed up on, and it will probably be handled with, you know, the respect that these characters have earned, the type of shit that they should be given or whatever, right? I think that that's totally fine and easy to digest. The problem is when we get to Season 2, we get introduced to a lot of characters who are now taking up a lot of this narrative space and runtime, and we are running out of, like, time in Season 2, meaning that the stuff that doesn't get in Season 2 is going to be bumped to Season 3, Season 4, and in Season 2 alone, off the top of my head, not even like repeating things from Season 1, we get introduced to Stolas' family, like his father, we get introduced to Stella's brother, we get introduced to the fucking Crimson, who's apparently like the biggest bad in the entire world, because he keeps coming back and having the same accent all the time, where he's like, Moxie, I want to kill you, but I've interacted with Blitz more this season because I guess I don't like him more now? I don't know. It's very bizarre. And on top of that, we've been introduced to Blitz's sister, we've been introduced now to Mammon. Like, there's so many characters that have been introduced in Season 2 alone that were basically up to the same number of antagonists introduced in Season 1, meaning that if you want to have an episode where all of them come back and get like their kind of second round with our characters, where we tie up their arc satisfyingly, like with Fizzaroli, we had a nice episode where Blitz and Fizz kind of dealt with their history, and it all happened in one swift go. Was it paced way too quickly? I think so, and so do many other people. The fact that now they're like totally friends after like one, death-defying adventure together, you're really stretching my suspension of disbelief here, but I'm willing to accept it because I like seeing these characters interact with each other. I think these characters have great chemistry, and it's really nice to just see the we were friends, but then we were enemies, and then we were friends again trope. I'm a sucker for that trope, so I'm willing to cut a little bit of slack, especially where I like these characters, again. I like Fizz and Osmodius. I like the fact that seeing these two characters together and having a whole new peek at their life and showing the relationship between them and the dynamic and how they face the public versus how they face each other. I like that. I like it a lot. I think they're one of the most well-realized dynamic duos in the entire show. So well-realized that they've completely replaced Eminem as, like, the secondary characters to Blitz, because for the past 2 episodes, they've been, like, front and center. And then even in one of them, Stolas was there. Fizz and Oz have so much, like, narrative weight, and this development was given to them in just 2 episodes. These characters are arguably some of the best in the entire show and most beloved. I think that's no accident, because these characters are getting the most screen time. And hint, hint, you want to know who hasn't been getting, like, any screen time in season 2? Fucking Luna! Luna's just been, like, abandoned. And I get that there's shit going on with the voice actress. I understand that. But it is very weird when you spend season 1, you spend so much time with a lot of these characters. You spend a lot of time with Moxie, Millie, and Luna, and then Millie kinda gets 1 episode. I think the problem is that you have all these characters now, though, introduced in season 1 and season 2, who all have this, like, narrative weight, who all kind of need to come back. Well, they don't need to come back, but it would be unsatisfying if, like, you have an episode where dorks say, hey, I'm gonna come back, and we're gonna, like, ruin your entire life. We're gonna spill the whole secret to the whole business. We're gonna tell the higher-ups about this with all this evidence we have of demons existing, and then they just never come back. Like, dorks are gonna come back by the end of the series. Whenever the series does end, they're probably gonna tie up a lot of these plot points. But it's still incredibly bizarre the way that they're being paced out. A lot of people have argued that when you watch Helluva Boss, when all of it is going to be finished is when it is going to be best viewed. Unfortunately, the way that we're watching it now is over the course of months of gaps in the release schedule. I understand that's because these episodes take a lot of time, and Spindlehorse is not like the massive media conglomerate that other companies are. I totally understand that. That's why they need to do a lot of stuff that other companies probably don't need to. But I also think that's why they are able to kind of, like, skirt around some of the things that a lot of people are expecting, because people are willing to be a lot more lenient just because it's a show that's made by an indie company, an indie producer, all this stuff. I want to be clear when I say this, because I feel like this might get misinterpreted, and I'm no stranger to having my words jumbled because of my own misdoings, because I don't present them in the most, like, succinct ways. I do apologize for that, but this is the way I feel best to communicate thoughts like this, because it's more honest to how I actually am feeling instead of scripting something and writing it up for years and years and years and then releasing an hour-long video that everyone just falls asleep to. I'd rather just, like, talk into a mic about how I feel about something days after I've watched it, so that way you know what I'm feeling is more genuine to how I actually feel. But when I say this, I do mean this in, like, a way that no intent for, like, any harm or anything to come to any of the people who work on Helluva Boss or any of that stuff. I don't endorse that. I don't believe in that. I don't think that people should be slandered and slighted and absolutely gutted over making something that isn't a 10 out of 10. I don't believe in that. There's a lot of other dumb shit people do to harass them over and bully them for, not even harass them and bully them for, to just joke around and, like, criticize them for, than making a show that wasn't great. I totally feel that way. There's a lot of shit you can, like, bully me for, and a lot of people have, because, yeah, I know my voice sounds weird, and I get it. When you look at the bigger picture of Helluva Boss, as we went into season 2, we're in the mid-season special. We're at the middle of season 2 right now. I don't think this show can end in a very satisfying way unless it goes on for, like, 5 seasons. Because there's so much stuff that needs to be brought back, taught. Like, okay, like, even if stuff gets brought back, Stolas in the hospital. Stolas got hurt. That was the entire, like, ending stinger bit to episode 4. That was the entire ending stinger to Western Energy. That was the thing that, in a roundabout way, birthed this channel, Forced Positivity, that made me have, like, a voice in this community, was because I thought that scene was so fucking stupid that I sat here in front of a mic many, many months ago, and I just ranted about how stupid it was. We finally know what the narrative payoff of that was. The narrative payoff was that the next time we saw Stolas on screen again, he was perfectly fine, and it wasn't mentioned at all that he was in the hospital, how long he was even there, what his trip was. You can use a bunch of context clues to figure it out roundabout, but it feels like the focus was lost from that moment. Like, if you have a character who gets like a huge injury, you feel like one of the next scenes involving that character is going to be them recovering, and then maybe it's going to be a scene of them like getting better, a scene of them learning to walk again, or maybe learning to just not deal with the trauma of that experience. He sees the guy who did it, and he doesn't make a single comment about it. I understand this could be for character reasons, but it is still incredibly jarring when, of all the things, when you start to not address shit that really doesn't have any explanation for why it wouldn't get brought up, I stop having the ability to sit here and say, benefit of the doubt. Maybe they forgot. Maybe they're just like cooking something up better. Maybe something's getting cooked for later in the series. Maybe. I stop giving you that benefit of the doubt when you do it time and time and time again. You can put all these ingredients on the table. You can put Andrelphus over here. You can put Crimson over there. You can put Striker. You can put 3 Strikers in the fucking pot. I don't think you're gonna get something that's going to end up with a product that is incredible and amazing at the end of it, because you have completely butchered all the narrative weight that some of these characters have. It feels like you're introducing some of them just so we can see that they exist, so when they come back later, it's not like a big deal, but you still forget to really like focus that much on Mammon, who was like kind of alluded to, but it would have been nice if like the main antagonist of this huge episode that apparently has like been controlling Fizz's life for his entire life since he was like a teenager and since his accident, and is like the way he met Osmodius. It would have been nice if there was like a little bit more like emphasis on that. If Mammon's such a huge dick and he's like so in Fizz's life all the time, it feels so weird that like all of a sudden he's just the center of Fizz's universe. Like we're going through a checklist of all the things Fizz needs to deal with, and every time we like solve one, we need to add another one. So we solved the Blitz one. What else does he deal with? Well, he hates his job, so let's put Mammon here. Take a shot every time in the episode that they reinforce that the sin of greed is a fucking asshole who's greedy as shit. Oh my god, I know that's a surprise in Helluva Boss, because the sin of gluttony is skinny as shit, and that the sin of love and like lust is a guy who actually like has a real romantic relationship. So there's 2 subversions, so the third one being like not a subversion is actually kind of interesting, and that's why I kind of like it. But besides that, they reinforce it so many times, it feels like you're a child. It feels like you're stupid while you're watching the episode. It makes me think to myself, why would they say it? Like, why would they write this so many times? Every time that they fucking show a scene with him, they have to bemoan the fact that he's a greedy asshole. I think I heard you the first time! And then the episode's 30 minutes. Why is it 30 minutes? That's because, well, there's a lot of stuff we need to cover. But in reality, we don't need to cover that much. These 2 girls get brought up, and I've completely forgotten their names after watching the episode twice because they're so inconsequential to anything. I don't like any of the songs in the episode. I don't like any of the actual, like, bigger moments. You could cut down the episode to, like, 15 minutes and get the exact same amount of value. You could write Blitz out of the episode, and it would flow a million times better. Like, this episode is so removed from Blitz and his entire shit that it doesn't make any sense why he's even in it, even if the narrative goes out of its way to justify it. The show has moved beyond Blitz at this point, and it's going to keep getting further. I firmly believe that. I feel like Fizz and Oz are just the new sort of main characters, and they're gonna like pop up in every single episode from now on. Maybe not every single episode, but we're gonna check in with them way more than we're gonna check in with Moxie, Millie, Luna, any of these other characters that we spent time with in season 1. I know that sounds really negative, and that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing, I wanna be clear. It's not a bad thing for shows to develop their side characters, their other characters in their environment and stuff. That's not bad. The problem is that I don't think Helluva Boss is ever going to come back to those original ideas. I mean, there are some things that get brought back. Some things. Striker is brought back from season 1, and that's great, except I don't like it. I don't like it at all. But the fact that they remember that Striker exists, cool. The fact that they tied up the loose end with Blitz and Fizz's backstory, and we now know a lot more about these characters, that's interesting. I don't think they did it in the best way, but they addressed it, you know, they remembered that. I think the problem is that when you actually watch these episodes, there's still lists in the hundreds of plot points that have kind of been pinky promised to be delivered on, and the pace of the show, the way that the rate of the show is moving forward, they bring up up a thing in one episode and then solve it by the end. Now, this is not a slow-burning show. I don't think Helluva Boss is like a slow burn by any means. Time and time again, they have shown that they are more than willing to just splooge their load on whatever thing that they think will get them the most like relevance in terms of like what is like the most narratively relevant thing to deal with. The reason that the entire Western Energy plot happened was it was a hype way to bring back Stryker. It was also a hype way to make people on Twitter go crazy when they see that, oh my god, Stolas got hurt. How is this going to affect Blitz? Newsflash, he says he can get hurt, and I don't know how he feels about it still.
Stolas got what? Ow. He can get hurt.
It still hasn't been like addressed in the future. We still don't really know. Blitz and Stolas haven't interacted since like seeing stars. It makes me question a lot of things when the narrative focus seems to be put on one thing and then we just keep shifting to another. It's like if you had an arc in like a shonen manga or something. And then instead of like wrapping up that arc, we start a new one. And then we start another one. And then we start another one. And then we start another one. By the time you start wrapping these up, it's going to feel weird because we're going to be in the middle of what kind of feels like the final boss, the final like antagonist of the whole series. We're going to be in the middle of that fight. And then all of a sudden, this lower ranked character comes up. And it's like, checklist. We need to get rid of him. We need to deal with him. We did it. Then the second arc guy comes up and it's like, checklist, we did it, we dealt with him. And it's this big like boss rush. And some series do that, and some series do it pretty well. I don't think Helluva Boss will. I think that Helluva Boss, in the time that it's lost its focus from what the main plot was, which I feel was the IMP trio plus Luna plus, Stolas, throw him in there, was them doing odd jobs, doing silly little things, doing silly little adventures with the subplot of Stolas and Blitz and the subplot of a couple other like loose threads that were put there, like Fizzarali, maybe Stolas' family and like his marriage and stuff. There was enough shit in season 1 to make 3 seasons of show with. I firmly believe that. In fact, I know it to be true. Because when I was watching season 1, I thought just with the amount of stuff they'd introduced then, they could cook so much amazing shit. Not even to say shit, they could cook so much amazing story with all of that. But now the realm has shifted. Everything, the scope of everything has just changed so drastically to the point where I don't really understand the show and where it's going to be going from now on. Like, I watch these episodes and I just sit here questioning to myself, so how will this affect the future? Osmodius and Fizz's secret is out. Is that going to be addressed in the future? It should be, because they made a huge deal of it. It should be, because it's probably the thing that most people are going to be talking about after this episode releases. So it's going to be the thing on most people's mind when they're writing the next episode. But are they actually going to do it? When time and time again, you forego finishing previous plot threads because you think of a new and cool one, or you can't wait to introduce this new character, you can't wait to bring this new thing in, that you just must do it now, I start feeling like you're never going to get around to those earlier things until it's way too late and the series is basically over. And then it feels like we're going through the checklist of getting rid of every single thing that we already established, so that way we can justify the way that we want the show to end, in the exact way that we want it, even if it doesn't make much narrative sense at all. I know this seems very harsh, and I know this seems like a very visceral type of like, ooh, I'm a very disgruntled fan, ooh, I'm very angry. But I don't feel like true anger towards this. I just feel more confusion and frustration because I don't understand what they want to do with the show anymore. Every time I feel like I know where it's going, it completely shifts in a way that doesn't even feel like it makes much sense. I mean, if you watch the first 4 episodes of season 2, you'd think it's going to be about like, oh, this is going to develop the dynamic between Stolas and Blitz a lot more, and we're maybe going to get like a Moxie storyline with Crimson. None of that has happened in the 3 episodes we've gotten since then. I think with all these new characters and plot threads that they introduce, they have an ocean of opportunity, all centimeters deep, some of them going a couple inches, couple meters deep down there. I think Fizz and Osmodius are great characters. I think Blitz has a lot of narrative shit. He has ties to like all of the antagonists. I think all you need to do is just explore the connections you already have instead of constantly creating new ones. It feels like in adding so much more, you've taken away from what could have been something that was on the route to be like absolutely great and amazing. And instead, you've lost the focus so much that instead of making something that could have been great, you're only going to end up being able to make something that can end good. And that's if you're able to justify a lot of the turns that you've already taken, something that I don't think the flashbacks have been very helpful with. Maybe Helluva Boss will turn around, maybe it will, half of season 2, and the quality of these episodes is varying drastically in my opinion. But overall, I feel like Helluva Boss is going to consistently be fighting an uphill battle, and I understand that a lot of people who watch this show have already made up their minds. They're a Helluva Boss fan for life, or they're a Helluva Boss hater for life. They're not really in the middle, they don't want to have a discussion, and I understand that a lot of people in my community may lean a lot more one way because I'm tending to be a lot more negative about the show than I am positive, and I understand that. But that's just because I've been a lot more negative on the show recently, because had I made videos during season 1, I would have been praising it constantly. But season 2, I can't hide how I honestly feel. I feel like there's more of it that I dislike than enjoy. But I've already enjoyed a whole season of it. In fact, I've already watched season 1. Season 1 was 7 episodes, and now in season 2 we're 7 episodes deep, and I feel almost completely the opposite. I don't think I've ever been more pessimistic on Helluva Boss than when he can get hurt happened. But foolishly, stupidly, I'm still gonna keep watching it. Cause maybe I'm wrong about all of this, right? Maybe this will serve as a very funny laugh back, and I'll look back at this and say, oh my god, I was such an idiot. I should have trusted them and let them cook. But more so, the point and reason why I'm making this is just so it's here. Because I haven't said anything about Helluva Boss for a while, and that's kind of on purpose. I don't know how much more I want to talk about the show, because all I found that I kind of am doing is just being really negative on it, and I know that that's going to keep driving a certain type of audience and a certain type of person to my channel, and not only on top of that, even if it gets views, even if people only want to watch me for my Helluva Boss content, I'm not gonna force myself to make content that I myself, don't really want to make that much. I'd rather just make the content that comes to me naturally. I do thank everyone, though, who has subscribed because of those videos and does enjoy that content, does enjoy all the stuff that I do. I do thank you immensely, even if I'm a lazy piece of shit who screams like a prepubescent fucking teenager. I appreciate that a lot. Sorry, Jamie, that you're having to edit all this. I think somewhere along the way, in a rather ironic twist of fate, I also lost focus of why I started talking about the show when I did. I started talking about it because something happened that I thought was really stupid, and I wanted to make a video about it. I want Helluva Boss to be a great show. I genuinely do. This doesn't come from a place of contempt for the people who make it, but it is very difficult to feel like that is a possibility when it keeps getting worse.
He can get her.